Hey guys, it's Chris. From the guy who just can't seem to escape lightning to the man literally buried alive as a cure for his attraction to it, here are 10 people who were struck by lightning multiple times. Number 10. Jim Lammy. Jim Lammy was struck by lightning twice inside of his own home. And this is completely absurd because one of the main things you should do during an electrical storm is stay inside your house. And while most people think they are 100% safe while hiding beneath their ceiling, Jim can testify to the contrary. In 2009, Jim was having a shower inside of his home in Pennsylvania when a lightning bolt crashed through his house, connected with the water pipe, and zapped him. He was hit so hard with electricity that he flew out of his bathtub. Luckily, his son was also at home and managed to rush into the bathroom and save Jim's life. And here's where things get real bonkers. 6 years after the initial incident, Jim was struck yet again. According to ABC Philadelphia, Jim was struck the second time while doing his dishes. He was hit so hard by lightning that he was knocked unconscious and didn't wake up until much later. Amazingly, Jim never sustained any serious injury during either of these encounters, aside from some pretty unique scars he got from where the lightning seared his flesh. Number 9. The Lightning Cure. A man named Alexander Mandon was working in the Colombian army when he was struck by lightning 3 times within just 6 months. It was such an unbelievable phenomenon that he actually got discharged from the military. However, this didn't stop the lightning strikes from coming. Alexander was struck again when he got home in 2013. And as if getting struck by lightning 4 times wasn't horrifying enough, the town doctor decided he could cure Alexander of his attraction to lightning in the strangest way imaginable. Keep in mind, Alexander lived in a pretty rural area of South America. The local doctor decided that Alexander could be cured if he were to be buried under the dirt with only his head sticking out for at least 2 hours. This way, the earth would simply absorb the electricity that was inside of his body. I mean, of course, that doesn't make any sense, and the fact that Alexander never got struck by lightning again is a mere coincidence, right? And now for number 8, but first, have you ever had a close brush with lightning, or do you know someone who has? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like these. Number 8. Roy Sullivan. The story of Roy Sullivan is absolutely bonkers. This is the guy who holds the Guinness World Record for having been struck by lightning more than anyone else on Earth. Now, it's important to understand that Roy was a park ranger in the Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. He spent the majority of his life outside in the wilderness, in a place where lightning frequently strikes to set the forest on fire. In fact, one of Roy's lightning strikes even set his hair on fire. Roy was struck by lightning 3 times. This happened over a brief period, too, and Roy was beginning to think he was cursed. Then Roy got struck by lightning 4 more times before dying in 1983. That makes a total of 7 lightning strikes. So we can't really get into detail on every single strike, but there is one story that claims Roy thought a cloud was chasing him. He began to run away from the cloud, and a single bolt of lightning came down and struck him anyway. We don't know exactly how true this is, but we do definitely know that Roy Sullivan was both the luckiest and unluckiest man alive for getting struck by lightning so many times and surviving each and every strike. Number 7. Melvin Roberts. Roy Sullivan is recognized as being struck by lightning more times than anyone else, but Melvin Roberts claims he actually holds that title. Melvin is from South Carolina, and he became famous in 2011 after being struck by lightning 6 times. However, by 2015, he had told people that he had been struck 5 additional times. He had apparently gotten struck by lightning while sitting on his porch, twice while he was riding on his lawnmower, and his wife is so horrified that whenever there's a storm, she stays as far away from him as possible. She also has someone on standby to call the authorities in case Melvin is in need of medical assistance. According to Melvin himself, each time he's struck by lightning, it feels like he's being cooked from the inside out. Unfortunately for him, all the lightning strikes have left their mark. Melvin apparently suffers from headaches, he has severe speech problems, he suffered nerve damage, and he even has dramatic memory loss. He says that sometimes he can't even remember when his children were children. However, he still has to be pretty appreciative that he's managed to survive being struck by lightning so many times. Number 6. Walter Summersford. Walter Summersford was a legendarily unlucky man. He was first struck by lightning in 1918 during World War I. To make this even crazier, Walter was struck by lightning while riding on his horse, and the electricity was so strong that it knocked him off the animal. After the war, Walter moved to Vancouver, And in 1924, he was out on a fishing trip when a bolt of lightning struck a tree and traveled through the ground to connect to Walter. As if his luck couldn't get any worse, he was then struck by lightning a third time in 1930 while walking through a park. The third strike was the worst, and it sadly left Walter paralyzed. And here's where the story's gonna blow your mind. Walter died 2 years after being struck by lightning for the third time, but he was struck again after death. 4 years after he was buried and gone, a crack of lightning split his gravestone, almost as if Mother Nature were mocking him even in death. Number 5. Twice in the same day. A man in Texas named Casey Wagner was struck by lightning twice in 2013. But unlike the other people on this list, he was struck twice in the exact same day. Casey was working as a Texas rodeo clown and was attending an annual event called Rednecks with Paychecks, which is basically Burning Man for the redneck crowd. During the festival, a storm began to brew. According to the report from ABC News, Casey and his friends ran for cover when it became clear the storm was getting real bad. But before they could reach safety, Casey was struck by lightning twice in the exact same second. It was basically like being shot twice in the exact same spot with a bullet. And that's probably how it felt, too. In fact, Casey even reported hearing a sound like 2 shotguns going off, one immediately after the other. But despite such intense electric shocks flowing through his body, Casey still survived, and he wasn't even badly injured. Number 4. Michael Cannon. Michael Cannon is a native of Alabama who was struck by lightning 3 times throughout his life. The first time it happened, Michael was only 16 years old. He was in the middle of erecting a fence with his father when lightning struck the fence about a half a mile from where he was. But if you're familiar with electricity, you'll know that it can travel about as far as it feels like. The lightning hit the fence and it quickly traveled to where Michael was holding onto the metal, and he was helpless as he watched a ball of lightning literally flow down the fence towards him. And yes, he got quite an electrocution from that ball of lightning. The second time Michael was struck with electricity, he was working underneath a truck. And yet again, the lightning struck away from him but managed to creep its way across the ground to electrify Michael. It was almost as if the electricity had been seeking him out on purpose. The third and final time he was struck, it happened at a friend's house. Michael was looking at an old car in his friend's barn when lightning struck somewhere nearby and traveled all the way to where he was touching the car with his hands, singeing the hair off his knuckles and knocking him out cold. Number 3. Bob Edwards. Bob Edwards was also struck by lightning 3 times. 2 of these strikes happened on the same road. The first time it happened was 1997, and rescuers actually had to revive Bob 3 times before he became stable. Many years later in 2009, Bob was visiting South Carolina when he got struck by lightning a second time. By now, Bob really thought his troubles were over. He didn't imagine in 1,000 years he'd be struck by lightning a third time. But in 2012, as Bob was leaving a restaurant and walking to his truck, he got struck yet again. And this happened on the very same road where he'd gotten hit all those years earlier in 1997. The electricity struck Bob so hard that he had to crawl back to the restaurant where someone eventually spotted him and ran for help. According to Bob himself, getting struck by lightning felt to him like getting hit in the chest with a hammer. Even days after being hit with the immense level of electricity, Bob still had ringing in his ears. He still had trouble to focus his vision, and the taste of metal has never really left his mouth. Number 2. Beth Peterson. You're probably starting to wonder why there are no females who've been struck by lightning multiple times. Of course, there's no scientific evidence saying that men get struck by lightning more frequently than women. It just so happens to be a huge coincidence. However, Beth Peterson is the one woman who really did get hit by lightning multiple times. The first time was in July of 1992 while working as an Army specialist in Georgia. She took a direct hit from a lightning strike and almost died. She had a near-death experience in which she claimed that God gave her the choice to return to the mortal world on Earth or go up to heaven. She claims that God told her that if she returned to Earth, she could help a lot of people. So Beth chose to return to Earth, and it was a year later, as she was still living in Georgia and trying to overcome the lingering fear from the first time she was struck by lightning, that she got hit yet another time. Beth now suffers panic attacks during storms. She's had an emotionally hard time recovering, and all 10 of her toes had to be amputated because of the lightning strikes. Even today, she continues suffering from crippling headaches. Number 1. Father and Son Special. Sometimes lightning strikes stay in the family. In 1963, Stephen Rooney was only 6 years old when his father was tragically struck down and killed by a lightning strike. 48 years later, the exact same thing happened to Stephen Rooney. It happened during the 4th of July weekend barbecue, a family tradition that had been going on for 30 years. As reported by ABC News, most of the family had gone inside when a storm cloud began to roll overhead. However, Stephen and a few others stayed outside to smoke a cigar. And when the family members told the men to come inside, Stephen replied that lightning never strikes the same family twice. Well, guess what? Just minutes after saying that, Stephen was struck by a bolt of lightning while trying to light his cigar. Medical workers arrived at the scene and Stephen was flown to the University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and he died 5 days later from his injuries. As it turns out, lightning does indeed strike the same family twice. So do you know anyone who's been struck by lightning? Let me know in the comments, and of course, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. And don't forget to come back soon for another amazing video.